Runes. One of the most discussed topics in heathenry, and rightfully so. With any commonly discussed topic, though, there are bound to be misconceptions, and so today we'll be discussing the top 5 most common runic misconceptions in modern heathenry, along with a little bonus information on runic spelling. Misconception number 5. The Elder Futhark is Norse. This misconception sets the stage for many misconceptions in the runic realm, and it's one of the most common. The idea that the Elder Futhark is used for Old Norse. The Elder Futhark is actually used for Proto-Germanic, not Old Norse, and wasn't used by the Vikings or historical Norse heathens, except for a small transitory period. The Norsemen used a younger Futhark, which was developed in the 8th century, which was very different from the Elder Futhark. For starters, it had 8 less runes, and more runes performed double duty for sounds. This little bit of information will be important to keep in mind for some of our later misconceptions. Misconception number 4, runes used in divination. Casting runes has become a common practice amongst heathens and people who like the idea of Norse divination, but is it historical? This question is heavily discussed and debated, but at the end of the day, there's actually no clear evidence that runes were ever used for divination. The justification of using runes primarily comes from Tacitus. For omens and the casting of lots, they have the highest regard. Their procedure in casting lots is always the same. They cut off a branch of a nut-bearing tree and slice it into strips. These they mark with different signs and throw them completely at random onto a white cloth. Then the priest of the state, if the consultation is a public one, or the father of the family, if it is private, offers a prayer to the gods and, looking up at the sky, picks up 3 strips, one at a time, and reads their meanings from the signs previously scored on them. If the lots forbid an enterprise, there is no deliberation that day on the matter in question. If they allow it, confirmation by the taking of auspices is required. Here we can see that the Germanic tribes used lots with symbols carved on them, but these symbols are never shown or elaborated on, thus making the idea of runic divination, historically, a misconception. Misconception number 3. Thor and Odin are spelled with Othala. This misconception is directly tied to misconception number 5, and this one might shock you. Thor and Odin aren't spelled with Othala. Thor and Odin are Norse names for the gods, and as such use the younger Futhark, not the elder Futhark, and the younger Futhark doesn't actually have Othala in it. The rune used to spell Thor is actually Ur, or Uruz. We can confirm this with the Valander runestone, which spells Thor, Thurs, Ur, and Raith, as opposed to Thurs, Os, and Raith. Odin is also spelled with Ur, which we can see on the Raiba skull fragment. However, Odin wasn't only spelled with Ur. Odin was also spelled, interestingly and strangely, with Os, which can be confirmed by the Odindisa runestone in Sweden. How can Odin have 2 historically correct spellings, though? The answer is actually pretty simple. There was no standardized spelling when these runes were carved. These runestones and archaeological finds give us a precedent to follow, but there isn't necessarily a perfect correct and incorrect runic spelling for words in Old Norse and or Proto-Germanic. Normalization and standardization of written language came much later than the invention of written language. It's also important to note that Old Norse is reconstructed. We don't actually know for a fact how the language sounded. This is how Odin has 2 historically correct spellings, one with Os and one with Ur. Misconception number 2. Thursaz is Thor's rune. Misconception number 2 might just have you buying a new Mjolnir, because this misconception has consequences. Thursaz, or Thurs, in recent years has been touted as the rune of Thor, son of Odin, slayer of giants, warder of mankind. But is it? How this misconception came to be, we simply have no idea, but it is a severe misconception. Thurs, or Thursaz, means thorn, or giant, according to etymology and the rune poems. That's right, this rune, often proclaimed as Thor's rune, actually symbolizes his mortal enemies and the enemies of mankind, the Jotnar, not the god of thunder himself. Misconception number 1, the blank rune. The blank rune, the rune of fate, the rune of Urth or Weird. Or is it? The blank rune is our number 1 top runic misconception because while this rune is commonly used in divinatory practices, it's actually completely ahistorical. The blank rune was a product of author Ralph Blum in the 80s. As he tells it in his book, Book of Runes, he purchased a set of runes from a woman in Redhill, England, who had included the blank rune amongst the 24 runes of the Elder Futhark. To the 24 Futhark runes had been added a blank rune, represented simply as the path of karma, that which is predestined and cannot be avoided. matters hidden by the gods. We can see here that Blum understood that there was no historical blank rune, and that the woman he had purchased the rune set from had simply added in an additional tile, gave it meaning, and sold the set as 25 rather than 24. To confirm this, we can look at the rune poems, which themselves never give mention of a blank rune. And that was our top 5 runic misconceptions in modern heathenry. Which one surprised you the most? What are some misconceptions that you've seen? Let us know in the comments section below. My name is Gavin. From our heathen household to yours, we're hoping you have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.